What's going on, y'all? I'm KM Best. We're going to talk to two players who finished first and second in the most recent Snap Battle Arena tournament. Both of them were playing Bounce, but neither of them was playing the stock list. Both of them had made adjustments in order to make their decks better into the mirror, and I think those adjustments can really help you understand how to play Bounce, how to play this current iteration of Marvel Snap, and what the best things for you to do are. So we're going to jump into those interviews right now. We have interviews with WhatAmI and Dmoney. WhatAmI finished second, Dmoney finished first. We're going to have WhatAmI on first. Personally, I believe that if I had to pick one of the decks, I think WhatAmi's deck is actually the one that does a better job of winning the mirror, but Dmoney pulled it out with some incredible play. So we're going to jump to interviews with them. I hope you learned something about playing Bounce, because Lord knows I learned something about Bounce play and Bounce deck building and general battle mode strategy. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you liked it, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thank you so much. Let's jump into the interviews. I am here with WhatAmI, who recently finished second in the Snap Battle Arena with another deck, as I've been talking about a lot recently, which is a deck featuring the Invisible Woman, Shang-Chi, Killmonger combination of cards. So he put them into what you, I guess, would call a bounce shell, but there's not actually any bounce cards in it. It reminds me of Bounceless Bounce or Saraless Sarah. So WhatAmI, how are you doing, and what were you thinking of with this list?
Doing good. Happy to take down the second. As far as the list goes, I basically looked at the format and went, okay, what is the most powerful thing I can possibly be doing? And the answer is obviously bounce. And then I decided I want to tech for the mirror and win the mirrors. And even though I, threw like 7 times and lost the finals to a bounce mirror anyway, I still stand by the deck choice. I think the deck choice is really good.
I mean, to be fair, I will be fair to you here. I do think you did perhaps throw the finals a little bit with that 8-cuber in the first game. But if I'm not mistaken, you ended up beating Dmoney in the Swiss. He's the person who beat you in the finals, right? So, like, it's not, the end of the road for your tech here, correct?
The deck is great. I beat Dmoney in the Swiss. I beat other bounce players in the Swiss. The deck does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's just still a very high skill matchup. And I did not play as well in our second round, and Dmoney took me down because he's also a really good player.
Yeah, Dmoney played phenomenally in terms of just like staying in situations where your opponent is trying to force you out. Calling bluffs, he was really good at during most of what I watched of the tournament. And so
100%.
I do want to talk about the deck though. So I want you to just elaborate for me on the Invisible Woman, Shang-Chi, Killmonger sort of core here. But I do want to say one thing first. Dmoney, I see you're in chat. If you want to do one of these, let me know. I disagree with you about Chavez, but I can't argue with the results. Anyway, so tell me about the Invisible Woman, Shang-Chi, Killmonger. Tell me about why you think this is the best shell for it. And tell me about, I guess, where you were thinking of going with this in terms of, okay, we have this specific core of 3 cards that I've been running in a lot of stuff. Why the bounce shell? Why cut beast?
So I actually went in the opposite direction from you. You're looking at this as I want to be running Killmonger, Shang, Invisible Woman. What's the best package? Yeah. I'm looking at this as I want to be running bounce. What's the best package? And the more that I played Beast in this deck, the more it felt like extremely mediocre. And like it can work sometimes, but you have to go so all in with it. And I was expecting to see a lot of people actually targeting bounce today with like Sandman and Wave, get those huge punishing plays if you try to set up your beasts, or get those mind games, or if you're able to set up your beast, or if you have to go off on turn 5. And this deck plays a lot better into those kind of decks where you can hide things behind your Invisible Woman, and it plays really well into bounce mirrors. So I was less looking for I want to play these tech cards, and more looking for I want to play bounce but still have game into everything.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense, because like it's interesting that we did arrive at that same package of cards from completely different directions, right? I arrived at it as a way to make mid-range decks combat bounce. You arrived at just like, okay, we're going to beat the bounce mirror with this. That's a really interesting way to approach this.
I started from Invisible Woman, not from the tech cards, right? Because Invisible Woman is in this deck originally as a protection piece, right? To dodge Wave or to dodge opposing Killmongers. But once it's there, the Killmonger and the Shang-Chi of your own become so ridiculously powerful.
That makes a lot of sense. I do want to talk about one card in here that you are running that I think is a little bit odd, at least but to my mind, and that is the Hood, with no ability to bounce it, just playing the Hood as a card. Your only removal for it is Killmonger. How did you find the Hood over the course of this series and this tournament?
Hood's amazing, and what you're missing is I actually have 2 pieces of removal for the Hood.
Bast?
And I feel like, yeah, exactly. I feel like any Hood deck, if you can get 2 pieces, 2 ways to remove it solidly, then it's just a really good card. And between Bast and Killmonger, I can remove my Hood consistently, and it's just like one of the best 1-drops in the game, so I'm happy to play.
Okay, so you're just like, I'm playing Hood on value. You've also given up cards like Iceman, Spider-Ham, any way to disrupt your opponent. You're just like, I'm playing for points. How did you play into Spider-Ham? Because one of the things I'm noticing about this is, Shang-Chi, Iron Man, I don't think they're particularly important in the bounce mirror, but against other decks that may be playing Spider-Ham, I know Moyen was playing Spider-Ham in his Electro deck, and that seems pretty horrifying to me if you were to run into that. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Spider-Ham can be rough. Definitely against my deck, Spider-Ham basically just reads discard a card, because if it hits Iron Man or Shang-Chi, like, I'm not fucking playing that, right? So the thing that happens is you just basically have to play down a card, but I can win down a card against Spider-Ham decks. That happens plenty of the time.
Okay. So I have a couple other questions about the list, but I'm going to jump over to the gameplay here, and we're going to be looking at Dmoney's perspective of the final game. I'm sorry to remind you of this.
No, I don't want to take anything away from Dmoney, right? But I threw like 6 or 7 times during our last series. It must have been fatigue getting to me from the tournament the whole day. I was not at my peak. It was a great game, but I was letting it go, man.
I caught one of the throws, right? I caught
there were a bunch.
I caught the one in the first game, which we're in the middle. We're watching the first game right now. I caught that one where it was just like, okay, we are looking at an 8-cube game, and then we just to me, it felt like the way you were supposed to play this matchup, given that you were favored overall, is to like not risk it in that opening game. And then we ended up just
I got way too arrogant.
Yeah. Is that how you would describe it? I always win this?
I thought I was able to lock it down. I thought I was going to take the 8-cube and walk on down the road and be done with the tournament. And I just got completely arrogant, and I got punished for it. Yeah, that's all that happened.
I was watching it, and I was just like, oh my god, because this is like such a favored matchup for you. Like, I almost wasn't surprised when you like won 4 in a row to come back and make it like a 3-1 game after losing the 8-cuber. It was just like, yeah, that's how this goes. I just don't know why we did the 8 at the beginning. And that's sort of how I was feeling about it when it was happening.
Oh, it's because we were being dumb, easy explanation.
I mean, I do that all the time. I love being dumb. It's my favorite thing in the world. So like in terms of the matchup here, I mean, watching it, I did sort of feel like you were favored, and just like whatever you want to chalk it up to. I mean, I think one word for it would be like got outplayed. Another word for it would be like through, depending on who you want to put this on. But like, I just sort of felt like
I think it's a little bit of both, because I don't think there was anything that Dmoney did wrong. I think he played it very, very well. As I said, I don't want to take anything away from him. But at the same time, if I am playing correctly, he is not supposed to win. So I look at it as more of a throw, because I was the one who messed up, rather than that being like a super amazing play on his part.
I more or less agree with your assessment of the matchup, which is to say, I'm pretty sure you're favored. But one of the things that I noticed a lot was just like, Dmoney understood very intuitively that all his 1-drops were dead all the time, and knew to contest your lanes properly with the 2s. And I do wonder if you think, maybe there's a worry about that if more bounce players start picking up on that. Is that a way for them to swing the matchup back towards you?
So I think that, as I said, he played it really well, and that means that I am less favored. I'm still favored in the matchup, but instead of it being like, 80-20, I think it swings back towards 60-40.
You'd really put it at 80-20?
Against a random-ass bounce player, I basically can't lose. Like, real talk. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but against someone who doesn't know how to deal with the things that I'm doing, I basically just win.
That is really, really interesting. It's like I have long been looking for, bounce deck that wins bounce mirrors. And I kind of think you might have found it. Like, that's the honest take here, is like, the reason I wanted you on here is because once I saw how this deck played, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, this actually just works. Would you describe it as bounceless bounce, or would you describe it as Sarah-less Sarah? Or do you think there's even a distinction to make?
I think it's close. It's bounceless bounce, right? I just took out Beast because he wanted for 3 mana and he got too clunky, but that's exactly what this deck is supposed to do, right? Yeah. It's bounce that wins mirrors. And that's what I waltzed through the open rounds into Top Cut because people were playing bounce and they just got crushed.
That makes a ton of sense. It's interesting because, like, you look at both your list and Dmoney's list, and they're both bounce that wins mirrors, right? Like, his list wins mirrors by going under, and your list wins mirrors by going over. Or not necessarily over, but like removal, however you want to phrase that. That's a really interesting thing that I don't think I picked up on during the tournament, but watching it back, it makes a ton of sense why you two met in the final.
Yeah, we both had the same theory of the game to get all the way there, and we both had the kind of the same metagame call and different ways to do it.
Yeah, it's the same, like, I want to play a bounce deck that wins the mirror, and I think the best way to do that is X, and his way was you get really low to the ground, and you just go, and you rely on being a smart snapper in order to maximize the, potential loss of value that you get from losing Chavez. And your idea was just like, no, forget all that. I'm going to run the 3-card God level package and just go with that. That is a really, really interesting thing. And I think, actually, as I'm talking about this, I think probably what I could do is cover both of them in the same context, right? We talk about your list beating bounce mirrors going one way, his list beating bounceless mirrors going the other way. And the key takeaway is, like, when you have the best deck, you play to beat the mirror, right?
Yeah, I think if for card gamers who have played a bunch of different games, I think we are honestly in a tier 0 format. And what that means is bounce is just a better deck than everything else. Even the decks that are trying to beat it, like trying to hardcore go wave Electro Sandman, bounce beats those a lot of the time. It's not a deck that you can target without being it. Yeah. Not if you're playing against a good bounce player.
Yeah. I think I'm fairly well sold. Like, if I had, with all due respect to Dmoney, who played fucking incredibly, if I had to choose one of these lists to play, I would probably play yours. But I think it's really like, that's mostly because I think while you both beat mirrors, I would suspect that your list, over a large sample size, is favored in the heads up. But, like, that is really, really interesting. Because, like, when we look at this, it's just like how completely, absolutely messed up this deck is. It's ridiculous, right?
I suspect that the next round of nerfs may see something like Bishop down to a 3-0, if nothing else.
Oh my God. I'm going to bring us back to the deck view right here. We've put the highlight of you getting 8 cubed on screen, so that's gonna do great to advertise this. Everyone's gonna love that. I'm gonna bring back to the deck though, because I wanted to dive into the deck. Is there anything else you think that we did not cover already that people who are gonna pick this up might need to know?
The only thing that I'd say is this is a deck where you really need to try to plan out a couple of turns in advance. And in the last match, that was one of the things I failed to do. But figuring out what your turn 4, 5, and 6 are going to look like starting on turn 2 and 3, just so you can figure out when you're going to get Invisible Woman down, what you're going to put under her, trying to figure out where your opponent's stuff is going to do. If you are going to try to play this deck and play it well, then try to be thinking more than one turn advance. Here's
another question for you. One of the things that I saw you get a lot of value of is people not making appropriate reads of what's under your Invisible Woman. How much of that do you think is unfamiliarity with the package, and how much does that contribute to the edge that you currently have?
It's a little column A, little column B moment. I think the deck gets a little bit more edge because people don't really understand what I'm likely to be putting under Invisible Woman and what the GTO plays generally are. Yeah. But once people do start to understand that, then you can start messing with them and bluffing, right? I can not spend my mana on turn 4 and put a random ass thing under Invisible Woman and go, yeah, there's a Shang-Chi there. Better not play anything.
I mean, one of the games I'm thinking of is in the semifinal, you put an Iron Man under Invisible Woman, and I was on stream like, oh, that's an Iron Man because he didn't play a kitty, right? And but the opponent was so worried that it wasn't an Iron Man, that it was a Shang-Chi, and they played around the Shang-Chi and then lost to the Iron Man. And that's a really interesting situation to be in.
Yeah. I think it has more edge now, but the power will not completely go away once people understand it more. Like there's still a lot of power in the bluff.
So, how confident are you in specifically the Shang-Chi inclusion? Because I've found him to be the weakest of the like Invisible Woman package. How confident are you in him? How good was he over the course of the day? Would you run it back with him, or is there like a little bit of shakiness there?
He's absolutely necessary. He won me so many games. I would not play this deck without Shang-Chi in it. I'm closer to cutting Iron Man than I am to cutting Shang-Chi.
Interesting. If you were to cut Iron Man, what would the replacement be?
If I was going to cut Iron Man, then I might put back in Iceman. I might try to get Beast in here, but every time I try to put Beast in this deck, it's so fucking awkward, man. Like I get that it does some good things, but if you're trying to set up Invisible Woman turns, then you just don't have the time to do both.
That makes a ton of sense, actually. Like, it's the cut you need to make in order to play a little bit more on curve. Do you think a card like Bishop loses value for you, or is just having Mysterio and Kitty enough to make it like, yeah, that card's still like a 3/7 and that's good enough?
Yeah, it still ends up as like a 3/7, 3/6 minimum, and sometimes like I still just play out the full hand and I get like a 3/10. Like it's just big.
Yeah, all right, that makes sense. Those are pretty much the only questions I had, because like the real things that really stuck to me were like, okay, the Hood, very as unprotected as a Hood deck can really reasonably ever be. And then the Shang-Chi, I felt like, you know, I guess you're just saying I win the mirror so hard I can run Shang-Chi and it doesn't matter, yeah?
Shang-Chi's good in mirrors too, man. You get like 10-point bishops, 10-point Angelas. I love Shang-Chi in the mirror.
I feel like whenever I run a Shang-Chi to Invisible Woman deck, like people just play around the Shang-Chi and make their stuff small. And it's like, oh, well, that card's dead. Like, I don't know.
So even if they're trying to play around it, it's really, really hard if I put a Shang-Chi under Invisible Woman for most opponents to win that lane, right? Like, even if they're going to play around it, and then they try to push into another lane, and I have a random-ass big unit and Iron Man.
Yeah.
So even if they're not going to put things there for Shang-Chi to kill, then a lot of the time, Shang-Chi still wins the lane.
That makes a ton of sense. What am I? Where can people find you? Do some self-promotion. I'm going to make you do it.
I have been not streaming this as much lately, but I probably should because this game is awesome. Twitch.tv/xx WhatAmIXX. Yes, I know it sounds like a 12-year-old. That's because that's how old I was when I made the goddamn name. But I often stream Legends of Runeterra, and I will probably be getting on to stream this game more because I love this game.
That's awesome to hear. We've been waiting for you to make the jump at some point. I mean, I guess I've been waiting for you to make the jump at some point. So you can find WhatAmI at that location. As always, I've been KM Best. WhatAmI, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. And frankly, I really think you're onto something here. This is something slick.
Peace, man.
Later. Yo, Dmoney, how you doing,
Hello.
brother?
I got a few things to say right off the bat.
Okay.
First off, I'm like really sick. Just forewarning you. I've been sick like these past few days.
Okay.
So I sound like shit.
No,
But
you sound fine. I wouldn't have guessed.
Thank you. Second of all, the hair is looking fresh, my guy.
Appreciate you.
Looking real nice. I like it.
You. Thank you.
And then third of all, yeah, what my girl is saying in chat, it's not a capital M in Dmoney. It's capital D. The rest is lowercase. Just saying.
You know what? That's a good point. Fair enough.
But happy to be here.
No, you deserve to have the respect put on your name, man. You won a tournament. You were like I gotta ask you. I want to start off with this. This is like kind of a weird question to start off with, but you had come in second at 2 previous creator clashes. How much was that in your head during that final matchup?
Oh, I knew I was getting second place ever since like the top 4. Like I knew it was gonna happen.
You were just like, it's happening, it's happening again. I'm watching it happen in front of me, and then you win that 8-cuber. What does it feel like when that happens for you?
I thought it was gonna be a repeat of what just happened in the creator clash when I lost an 8-cuber in the first game, and yeah, I was just sweating. Like I did the math for what he could have under the Invisible Woman. Like I figured it was Killmonger.
Yeah.
Then I knew his Kitty Pryde was 2. I knew he could put Demon under there as well. Like I did the math. I thought I was all good, but I was still sweating. But after I won, I figured it was over. But I mean, that deck is crazy, and like I said in chat, like I got destroyed by him in the Swiss. So I was still I was still giving it my all after that.
Would you agree? Because we had WhatAmI on. Would you agree with his assessment that like ceteris paribus, like all else held equal, he's probably favored in the matchup?
He is very favored, yeah.
Okay, I like that. That was
that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it felt like it was just like, oh man, because especially against your build of bounce, which we're gonna get to in a second, being reliant on the hood and Ant-Man and stuff like that makes you even more vulnerable to the Invisible Woman Killmonger, and it's just like, oh my god, it's like you're basically a zoo deck, right?
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, that matchup. I really needed to win a big game like that, or else it was going to be really tough.
It sort of felt like if you, like, to me, it was like, well, once you pulled that off, it was like, oh man, you're actually going to pull this off, because I felt like WhatAmI's strategy was supposed to be to, like, he's going to bleed you, right? He's just going to bleed you out little by little, and like, that's just how it goes when you have a good matchup, and then you win that 8-cuber, and it's like, oh my god, all we need is one more. All we need is one more. I do want to ask you, because one of the things that really stuck out to me was how well you played against Mr. Negative in the semifinal. And I'm going to bring that up on the screen right now, because I found that these matchups against Mr. Negative to be just super compelling in terms of how you played and how you stayed and how you were willing to just be like, no, you do not have the thing. So can you talk me through your thought process on Mr. Negative, your snapping strategy, things like that?
Yeah, I was dreading going into that matchup. I was really hoping that the other person won before that. But yeah, I knew against Mr. Negative, like, if I have a good hand, I want to snap aggressively, because I want him to I want him to have the Mr. Negative, like his combo, or else he has to leave pretty much. So if I have like a decent hand, I'm going to snap it and I'm going to make him have something good. And then if I see Mr. Negative come down at a magic, like, I got to leave, of course. Like, most situations I have to leave. But I believe I did stay in one of them where he did have both of those things, or he had like,
yeah, you did.
I think he had like Jane or something like that after the Mr. Negative. And I think it was because I was so far ahead on board at that point that I did the math, and I figured that even if he does have the Mystique with the Iron Man, like, I probably still get there, just because the deck puts out so much power, the bounce deck.
Yeah, I mean, because like you're putting him on so few outs in a situation like that I was thinking during the whole time was like, well, the actual out here is not going to be like Mystique Iron Man. It's going to be like Iron Man Arnim Zola and Mystique or something like that. Like, it's got to be a lot of power here because of what the bounce deck can do. So I want to bring it back to your specific build of the deck here, because I know you have some strong opinions about how you built this deck. So let's just jump right into it. Do your 30-second pitch for No America Chavez.
America Chavez sucks. That's it.
That's it.
She
sucks. Okay. She's trash.
It's interesting. I don't think she's bad in the deck. I think she's fine. It's I mean, the thing is, in a deck like this, like, I get it more in like the Iron Man kind of version. But like in this version, you would never play Chavez pretty much on turn 6. So
correct.
Yes, you're making the consistency. It's tricky because you only go up like a couple like, it's very close on the percentage points.
You go from like, it's like 33 to 36 to have Kitty or Bast in opener. And then it's like 5% or so up to get, like, you go from like, I want to say it's like 61 to 66 or something like that, or 66 to 71 to get Beast by 5. And I think those are the main focuses for someone like me, getting those percentages up.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like the only percentage that matters is Kitty.
Yeah.
Personally. It's like all about Kitty in that opening hand. And do I think America is worth it just for the extra insurance of getting the Kitty? Because this deck has the collector version that I'm playing. It just has so many good cards in it. Like, there's so many powerful, like, there's 5 targets that get very large with the collector, Angela, Kitty Pryde, Hitmonkey, and Bishop. So the odds of you having a bad hand, even without Chavez, or even without Chavez, is pretty low. It's just about that. It's just about whether or not you're going to get the Kitty Pryde more often on turn 1. And I see the argument. I don't really know. Like, to be honest, I don't know what the best version is, but this one just seems very consistent for me. And yeah, it kind of shows.
So I want to dial down on 2 things that really stick out to me about the way you built this deck, right? And those 2 things are you're not playing Iceman and Spider-Ham, and instead you're playing just points. Ant-Man, Medusa. Tell me about the thought process that led you to this kind of build.
Yeah, sure. A lot of people ask me about those specific cards, the Spider-Ham and the Iceman, and I basically just say, like, I don't care what my opponent has. Like, we just put out so much power with this deck that, like, I don't care if I Spider-Ham there's no 6-drop that's gonna destroy me. It's only Galactus, or it's only like Sandman, and you're probably not gonna hit that anyway. You'll probably hit a Death if you're playing against Galactus, or they have multiple 6-drops. So, like, there's no 6-drop that's going to stop this deck. I don't care about Spider-Ham. Like, maybe in the mirror, it gets a little interesting. Spider-Ham can hit some pretty good targets. I know against my deck, it can do some solid work. Like, if I have a lot of, like, 2-drops in my hand, only 2 drops, and it hits a big guy. But I still have, like, other big guys to hit. So, I think they are solid cards. It's just, like, I don't even think the deck needs it. I just go raw power, and it's cool.
Yeah, because, like, what struck me about watching your list and WhatAmI's list is you took 2 separate approaches to arrive at the same point, which is, I think this bounce list beats the mirror because X, right? And I feel like you're pretty confident in your mirror matchup, correct?
I mean, honestly, the mirror could go either way. That's just like, I mean, I lost the only mirror that I played besides, like, against WhatAmI. I lost the only mirror. It basically comes down to how well you snap and retreat, and who draws their bounce cards, who draws Kitty Pryde with the Angela. It's really like it comes down to that. So then maybe Chavez is better for helping you draw the Kitty Pryde. It's so hard to tell. But yeah, I feel like the bounce could really go. The mirror could go either way, but I do like my list a lot better than. I just think, like, the list that run, like, Shang-Chi especially, and the Iron Man. I think that, like even just Iron Man is just, like, really clunky in the deck. It's just another dead card that's going to be in your hand, and my deck it just can efficiently throw out all the stuff and use all your energy, like, every single turn, and usually there's not any dead plays. Yeah.
What I like about your deck, sort of fundamentally, is that it's, like, just an aggro deck. It's like, look, I'm bigger than you. Like, that's like, it fundamentally appeals to me in that way, as someone who played, like, mid-range Murloc Paladin in Hearthstone during, like, Ungoro or whatever. It appeals to me in the way of just being like, look, I'm doing this, and you're probably gonna die when I do it. So, are there any matchups that you'd want to highlight that you just, like, I don't want to see that?
Definitely WhatAmI's deck. I don't want to see that. I mean, Lockdown is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
I did play against a Thanos lockdown control kind of thing, and Storm does hurt this deck quite a bit, especially if they have a Juggernaut to follow it up.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to, like, stick the Bishop on there when they play the Storm. You have to, like, guess, or else they're gonna jug the Bishop. It gets pretty tricky.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, like, spread out the Collector and Bishop, like, really early, and you have to have those cards. So Lockdown seems pretty tough, but it's winnable. Of course, the Wave Sandman is a bit troublesome, but the great thing about Conquest mode is that, or just battle mode in general, is that you have the potential to beat anything with anything. If you just outplay your opponent, especially with the snap and retreat mechanic, play to your outs, I think you have the potential to beat anything, especially with a deck like this that's so strong.
I was super impressed with your composure and general understanding of battle mode. And I have for a while felt that your understanding of battle mode was, like, significantly more advanced than people, I think, give you credit for. I don't think, like, it's an accident. Like, you were the one talking to me about free retreats and stuff before I even understood what that was talking about, right? Like, so are there any specific battle mode tips that you have for someone watching this?
I appreciate the words, first of all.
Of course.
Any specific tips? Don't lose an 8-cuber at the beginning of the match.
Yeah, that's a good one. That'll work.
I mean, nothing so specific comes to mind. I mean, like you were saying, like the free retreat thing, just keeping an eye on the rounds and the cubes is very important.
So to
really
elaborate,
yeah.
I'm just going to jump in to explain the concept to people who may be watching. The free retreat thing is like, okay, it's round 4, you're up 9 to whatever, you can go down to 8 and that'll mostly be the same thing, or you're up 10 to whatever. You don't want to go 9 to 8, but you can go 10 to 9 because 10 to 9 going into the final rounds is basically the same thing because one life point is the same as 2 cubes.
Yeah, exactly. And you go like 9, you could even go 9 to 7.
Yes.
Then, yeah. So you can wait for your opponent to snap. You could like stay in a game that you wouldn't normally stay in. Then if your opponent snaps, you could still stay in. You get like a free stay, and then you decide at the end. Or you get like a free snap on your opponent, but then they can snap you back. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that specifically is something that put you so far ahead of so many people, is just thinking about things in terms of their actual value and not how they feel, right? And I think that's like the key insight I'd want to pass on to like people watching this is like, don't do something because it feels right. Do something because it is. And Dmoney was really good at doing that.
Yeah, 100%. You have to. I mean, it's like everybody compares it to poker. Like you gotta. The snap mechanic, the cube mechanic is just so interesting and it's so complex when you really like think about it. And it can get overwhelming in the heat of the moment, but I mean, one strategy that I like to do in battle mode is just really focus on my play first, lock in my play in my mind or on the board, whatever, and then think about snapping afterwards. And really just like taking your time. I mean, you get rewarded in this game for taking your time. Everybody knows that. But also always being prepared for if your opponent snaps you in any situation. Like, if they snap me here, am I leaving? Am I not? What you always have to be assessing every single possible outcome and just the state of the game. So, yeah, I mean, just take your time. That's like the biggest thing. And sometimes I have to remind myself that as well. It's very easy to rush yourself, and that's how you make the most mistakes in a lot of games. So, yeah, that would be probably my best advice.
So good job then. Congratulations on staying patient. Congratulations on converting your good mentality into a win in the Snap Battle Arena. Do you have anything that you want to say? Do some self-promotion? Pump yourself up, man. I know you're sick, but I bet you can do it. You can be sick the other way, right? Like, I know you're sick, but you can be sick too. Let's go.
Oh, I can totally self-promo at any
Let's
point.
Go.
Nah, I did get like quite a few good. I literally did not queue into any Sandman or Wave players the whole entire tournament. So people still went with the high Evo lockjaw kind of thing. A lot of them, and the bounce just eats that deck up. It even eats up Shuri. Shuri puts out like the same power as like these lockjaw decks. This deck is just it's so strong, and so I feel like I got pretty lucky on my matchups. But yeah, it was still a tough tournament, and shout out to WhatAmI for making the finals really competitive and just being a good sport about everything. All the players that I played against were for the most part good sports, and I had a great time.
I hear for the most part, and I just realized that like there must have been someone who was like spam.
There was one person.
Yeah.
Like, no, he wasn't spam emoting. He was just like, the second we matched up, he's like, "Send me the code, dog." And I'm like, say please, and then he doesn't say please. He just sends me a code instead. And then
this is like you both did like the like, all right, alpha check, right? Send me the code, dog. Say please, and then neither of you acknowledged it.
And then I won, and then I said GG, and then he said yup, and then that was it. So
you deserve that winner GGs. Yeah. Come on now. But
seriously, thank you for the interview.
Oh, for sure.
KM Best with the solid interview. Great questions. Thank you very much for having me on the KM Best show. And
yeah,
if you want to check
called.
out, hey, if you want to check out my channel, I've been sick for a while. I went to the UK for the tournament. I was there for a week. I came back, then I got sick right after one stream, so I haven't really streamed for like 10 days. But I'm coming back soon. If you want to check it out, twitch.tv/Dmoney. I like to play unique decks to the top ranks. This is not really the most unique deck ever, but I always try to make it. I always try to put my own spin on it and just have a good time while playing like competitive Marvel Snap. Yeah.
No, you definitely did. Congratulations on the win. And I wish you the best of luck recovering your health. Thank you so much for coming on, Dmoney. Everyone, make sure to drop those follows, drop those subs, whatever you want to do over on Dmoney's Twitch stream. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.